Ladies and gentlemen, I accidentally turned my friend racist by pointing him towards programming and coding. I had no idea that this was going to happen, but it's worth a story. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Nev from NASDAQ, but otherwise known as your friendly neighborhood basement dweller. Don't worry, ma'am, I am from the internet, and today I want to talk about the systems that we have. Anyways, had an old school buddy, played COD with him all the time. Guy was good at math. Guy was really good at math. Told him he might want to look into programming. He got into it. Now, he could do the programming. He could not understand the teacher's accent. He had an Indian teacher, and he could not understand her accent. And at the time that this was going on, everybody immediately went to this individual is racist. Now, I can tell you for a fact that that individual was not racist when all of this stuff started, but when it ended, he was. When he went to administration, they would not help him with the issue. This was his issue, and they couldn't be flexible, they couldn't find another teacher, they couldn't do anything. But they kind of put it on him that he was the racist one for not being able to understand this dialect. This an Indian teacher, thick accent, and I'm sure we've all heard of this happening. This was before COVID. This was well before COVID. The social justice warriors were getting they were in academia. And as we see now, social justice warriors have a lot to do with academia. A lot of ideas sprang from academia. I know a lot of people who have come from McMaster's University that clearly don't know the difference between institutionalized racism and racism. These are two different things. These are definitely two different things. Institutionalized racism has racism in it, but institutionalized racism is not the definition for racism. And it's amazing that there are people graduating out of institutions that I have to argue this about. And then when I say, look in a dictionary, they say the definitions in the dictionary are written by white colonialists and you can't trust them. All right, all right. So then why do we get to trust what the school says? Now, here's the interesting about schools and when you start talking to people who are within them. Now, I have family within school systems. I have family within politics. And it's interesting, it's really interesting when you cross the two. I also have family in mental health between Palmerston and Listowel is an old mental health facility. I had family that worked there. They've seen things they will never tell me about. And that is interesting. But when you combine all of the things and bring them together in an infinity gauntlet of information, which I absolutely don't have the full thing, but I do have a big enough looking glass that I can see that within academia has a bit of an old boys system. We usually like to refer to people in hillbilly towns as having old boy systems, but academia absolutely has an old boy system. And if you listen to people within it, you will find out that it can definitely be not what you know, but who you know. And there are people within it that can legitimately get bad ideas. You can legitimately have a teacher who had their brain hijacked. Like let's say an alien from another dimension. I'm not a conspiracy. How do I even make this cartoonish without sounding crazy to everybody? Like things happen. Things happen to people that changes them like that. Sometimes they could okay, this is a stretch. There are people who have been shot in the head that it's clear that they're different. That they're different after they got shot in the head. And some people are different after they've talked to certain people. And I think that we might need higher standards when it comes to school and schooling about who gets in, who gets to teach, and who gets to take over the faculty. Work to rule, for example. You get a lot of individuals who will just work to rule the place. And that's definitely happened with Columbia, with Harvard, now I'm talking US, but I'm telling you, it's the same in Canada. It is absolutely the same in Canada. And schools aren't often checked. Post-secondary schools aren't often checked. So within our groups, if we have issues with people in our groups, we need to check people within our groups, because if they have a bad idea and they let it fester, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And yeah, maybe the police will have to deal with it eventually, but the police are going to ask you why you didn't do anything about it, and you are going to have to give them that answer, and you might have to give somebody else that answer too within your community once something actually happens. Now, it's fascinating, and what we don't like to talk about is men have difficulty checking women. We can't do that legitimately. Even before COVID, clinical psychologists flat out say we can't check women these days. Women have to check women. But from the advent of the internet, what we're finding out is women don't check women unless they're competing directly for a thing. They absolutely won't check women. There is so many. When you're in the city, you can be sitting on the subway bus and be hearing things that you aren't supposed to hear. And it's interesting how quick you can fall into some stories. But when men get together, and I have a few stories of my own, and not even just men, but women, sitting down, hearing conversations that other women hear. Like this is one, for example, that absolutely happened. A woman complaining to a friend that her boss, who she's sleeping with, isn't leaving his family for her, and the friend next to her says, "Oh, he's just a dick. It's just the universe." And now, what she should be saying is, you shouldn't be sleeping with your boss. He has kids. This isn't going to be good for the kids. You need to not do this and tell him to do this, this, and this. Hell, he might even be using you here, here, and here. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. But what we're not doing is saying personal responsibility on you, and you shouldn't be sleeping with your boss. We don't do that. We absolutely don't do that to academia, because academia feels like they can tell us whatever they want to tell us. And geez, even back when, what was it, Wagons East, when they were talking about people in the Potter's Ground, they were talking about idiots. They just call them morons, idiots, guys. Seriously, like, you can say that, but when the lights go out in the city, like, farmers got a plan. The city doesn't always have a plan. Like, you get people within the city who are good at, getting things going. But if you want to talk unit per unit about who's going to be able to get the facility working after everything's gone down, guys, you got to have a little more respect for farmers, especially in a pinch. But academia absolutely does not have this respect for people like that, and it's felt, and it sucks. But in this is a responsibility for academia. Academia needs to be on the up and up. And if they're not, then we need to get rid of them. So there have been problems going on for decades with academia. It's not one of those things that Donald Trump just rose up and said, hey, we're going to take all the funding away from these major universities. And all of a sudden everyone's like, clutches pearls, clutches purse. The thing is, why is Harvard getting millions, billions of dollars from the United States government when they have so much? They are sitting on so much money. They're sitting on so much money. And this is the kind of information that you have to kind of know in order to get through. But hey, instead of bitching about the way other people treat other people and bitching about whether borders are real, let's talk and see how things are going. Let's see how things are legitimately going. They're not going all that good. They're definitely not going all that good. The people within academia, especially at the higher ends, are blinded by money, which is horrible. That's all they care about, money. And in Canada, we know this. Tidbits, whatever we call them, Conestoga College, all of the colleges over in all of the college. It's like, if there's a college in Kitchener, nobody's taking applications from that place anymore because nobody trusts those places. Now, I want you to sit with that. Nobody trusts some of these institutions anymore because they only want money and they only want power. These are supposed to be institutions that give higher learning. It's not supposed to matter who you're affiliated with, but it does these days. And these individuals, these higher learning places, are getting infiltrated by bad ideas, by like the Free Palestine movement. Now, I'm not even talking about the movement. I'm talking about the destruction that goes on from these movements, from individuals who aren't even part of the country. They're just here to disrupt. They're anarchists. But we have people within academia that think that they belong here, that think that they deserve to be here, that don't think borders are real and don't think laws are real. Well, they are. And if the schools don't want to start dealing with the everyman, dealing with maybe even the hicks in the hillbilly country, then they're becoming swiftly disconnected from reality, detached from reality, and can be dealt away with. We have technology, we have artificial intelligence. Maybe we don't need them so much. Maybe it's time to redo schools. All that I know is that I had to give my friend an apology for telling him to go into programming, which he couldn't do because of the accents. I felt bad for telling him to go that way. I myself have problems with accents with many of these individuals, and I'm learning. I'm trying to get better. I absolutely am. However, I come from a factory. I don't hear so well, so it's a bit of an uphill battle. Now Canada's definitely changing, and I have to change with her, but at the same time, Canada changes, the schools have to change, and if it changes, it has to incrementally not change to the point where people can't understand the teachers. That's an important thing. We're just getting to a point where we can talk about the schools not caring about the students and instead caring about the way they can manipulate society and change society to the way that they themselves seem best. The way that they themselves seem best, but these higher learning institution doesn't have a lot of respect for the proletariats, for the average individual, and that has to stop. It's as if we've reached out internationally with the idea that the only bad people were white people, and that every other group deserves a seat at our table. Well, I mean, in Canada, they absolutely do. But if they come over and get a seat at our table, if they're going to be talking, we need to understand. We need to be able to understand them, and they need to be able to talk in a way that we can understand. We have two languages. It's best if we learn them. If you're coming to our country, you have to assimilate with certain ideas, and not all of them, but the idea that you need to assimilate the idea that Aisha was way too freaking young. You need to assimilate with the idea that women aren't property. You need to assimilate with the idea you can't beat your children. You need to assimilate with the idea that honor killings are not going to be honored here. And if you have a problem with that, then make yourself known. Make yourself known and stand with your point. Don't hide around it. Stand with it with exactly what it is. And then we can all see and we can all deal with it. But all that I know for sure is the only reason my buddy couldn't get his education is he couldn't understand the accents. That's not his fault. That's academia's fault. And academia has to bring their shit together or stop expecting the country to facilitate them. Because if it's a private institution, it is not up for the government to facilitate them at all. It's interesting. It's interesting. I wonder if these universities are going to be around in 100 years. We'll see. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, take care of each other. Take care of each other. And don't be hating anyone because of the difference in their skin. But take care of each other. Have a good one, folks.